Hello, and welcome to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I am your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife and producer, Janet, and we are at the AM 1470 KBSN studio live and on my personal Facebook page and the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and like my Facebook page or follow it so you can get all of our updates. Today we were supposed to have Dr. Greg Jones, chiropractor at Health Source Chiropractic, and he is having a much funner thing going on. He's having a granddaughter born soon, so he, congratulations. He postponed it for a couple weeks, so we'll have him on in a couple weeks. So today, Janet and I get to share our story. We've been doing this show for 10 weeks now, and we haven't had a chance to share our story, so we would like you to get the viewers and the listeners to get to know us better. So we're going to do that today. I'd just like to start out the show with, thanking you, the listeners and the viewers, for tuning in and for on Facebook and live here on the radio and YouTube. We really appreciate it. Without you, we wouldn't have a platform, and we really enjoy educating you about everything healthcare. So thank you so much. I'd also like to send out a big thank you to KBSN and especially Dale Roth. He's behind the scenes here, and without him, without KBSN, we wouldn't have had a platform to educate you guys on everything healthcare. So thank you, KBSN and Dale Roth. And of course, I don't do it enough, or I don't know if I've done it yet, but I'd like to thank my wonderful wife for working behind the scenes on the last 10 shows and doing all the technology stuff. And there's a lot that goes on behind the shows to make these things get produced. And after the fact, I have my son Jordan, who edits the videos and puts them on YouTube, and go check out YouTube and check out his hashtags and his descriptions and stuff, because it's really cool. Jordan Needham, he has his own production company, video production company now, and he does all that on my YouTube video, on these YouTube videos, with very little direction from me. So thank you so much, Jordan. So today we're going to get started with our stories. I'm gonna let Janet start with her story. So Janet, why don't you go ahead and kind of tell us your background and what brought you into pharmacy and where you were born and all that good stuff.
So I was blessed to have been raised in the state of North Dakota on a farm and a ranch. I'm one of 6 children, and I thought one day I would want to be a veterinarian, but soon learned that was not possible because I just really couldn't do the blood and be not too emotional about stitching somebody up or trimming nails or anything like that. So I kind of followed in the footsteps of my mother. She was a nurse for many years, and loved the fact that she had a caring demeanor and loved to help people with their health, and so that led me into a path of health, and did a little bit of research in my hometown of Velva, North Dakota, where I was able to shadow our pharmacist at the time, Mr. Huglin, which was so gracious to take the time and preceptor me along the way. And then I went to school after graduating from Velva School to NDSU in Fargo, North Dakota. And if any fans out there for the Bison, we're on our 8th championship ride. Hopefully we can maintain that with our football team. Go Bison. Where I studied pharmacy and graduated in December of '92. In that track, I decided to move out to the Northwest, partly because it's so beautiful here. And the weather, for one. If anybody knows anything about the Dakotas, it's very cold, winters are long, and I had family on the coast and had been out as a child and just thought the green and warm temperatures were going to be paradise. So here we are. And one of the draws that I had for the Northwest is partly the view and the culture of wellness, and also the outdoors. There's so many wonderful things you can do here, from the mountains to the ocean to all the rivers and lakes. There's just a plethora and ton of activities you can be involved with. And the other part of the coin was I really wanted to participate in a community. So a farm and rural community just seemed like the ideal thing for me. And I'm so blessed to say that all the friends and people that I've met in a small town have been a true blessing to me. And then in my journey of studying pharmacy, I ended up working for a company at the time. It was Payless Drugstore. And I was practicing there for a short term where I actually met my husband, Shawn.
Woohoo!
Right? He was doing an internship at the store that I was working at, and I think I probably scared him.
Yes, that's right. She was my boss. I was an intern. She was a pharmacist.
Yes, it was so. At that time...
oh, and she still is.
I hope so.
My boss.
At the time, I was a little disenchanted, and I was not impressed with retail pharmacy from the standpoint that when you get into a big chain store, people became almost like numbers to me. So I worked there for a short time and decided that I needed a smaller setting so I could participate more in my patients' and customers' health and be more of a tool to them versus being just a number. I wanted to be able to make relationships, which meant that we would journey in life together with their health. So I was blessed to find a job at the time at Super One Foods at their pharmacy within the store, and I practiced there for many years, and it truly was a blessing. It helped me get my feet solid and be more comfortable as a pharmacist and also interact with many patients. But there was still part of the puzzle that I wasn't exactly pleasantly and unpleasantly happy with. So as Shawn was doing his wrap up and became a pharmacist, he did some retail at Walmart, I believe, and then the hospital. And we always had this ongoing conversation of what we thought practicing healthcare looked like. The journey of becoming a student and then becoming an actual professional didn't really match sometimes. So we were given the opportunity to perhaps open our own pharmacy, and we chose to do so, and life changed. We were able to make decisions about how we practiced. We made a counseling room for patients to be counseled in. We helped them with learning how to use monitors and how to decipher what their medications would be like. We also helped them with maybe partnering with their doctor, and it was good. Up until the point 1 year, I had a patient who I followed from almost the time that I moved to Moses Lake call me on the phone, and she said, "Janet, I am passing away." And I was devastated because I hadn't seen her for a while, but I had been a part of her life for many, many years. So what happened is this lady had been taking so many medications. I mean, it was like a box full. It was like probably 20 at a time. And she was bedridden, and she had multiple disease states. And after we had our conversation and I hung up the phone, I just had this feeling that, how I was practicing as a pharmacist, even in our own pharmacy, I didn't know if it really benefited this patient or if I just enabled her to have a lifestyle that brought her down that journey of passing away early in life and not living life. So Shawn and I had many, many conversations about how can we change this? There's other practices out there that were practicing differently, and what that looked like. We decided that perhaps we needed to do something different.
Wonderful story, Janet. Thank you for sharing, and that kind of leads me into mine, I guess. You're letting me take over. But I got to tell you that Janet is an incredibly humble person, and that's one of the things I love about her. And because she is humble, she's not going to tell you this, but I think it's really interesting to know when you go back to her story, and I find out things all the time still. You know, she grew up in rural North Dakota, and she was born in a house without running water. I mean, think about that. That wasn't that long ago, and she was born in a house without running water. So to come from something like that and, you know, be living the dream like her and I are is just an amazing blessing. And we think, you know, we have to thank God and our amazing patients and our family and for their support, because it's a wonderful thing. So Janet didn't give you any timelines, but in 1998 is when we opened our pharmacy, and for a while we weren't practicing, you know, the health and wellness model like we do now. And in 2002 is kind of when that story hit Janet, and we decided to make some changes. So that's when we more focused on health and wellness. And let me just go into my background a little bit, since I haven't shared that yet. But I graduated from Othello High School, and then I wanted to be a pharmacist since I was a sophomore in high school. I had an advanced chemistry teacher down there, Kent Russell, in my advanced chemistry course, and he was inspirational to me and saying, well, why don't you, my twin brother and I, he was on episode number 1 of Health Solutions. We were the number 1 and number 2 advanced chemistry students, so we really, really liked chemistry. And of course, you know, my brother later on goes to get his PhD in chemistry, so, and I become a pharmacist. So, you know, those high school teachers were really instrumental in directing our careers. So thank you for that. And then I decided to go to pharmacy school at University of Washington. Actually, Shane, my twin brother, was at Washington State University, but I decided I wanted to, you know, change it up a little bit and go to the University of Washington. And so I graduated from pharmacy school in 1994. And you know, my goal was to live in a small town. That's kind of why I chose pharmacy, because I could live in a small town and still make a living. And my eventual goal was to own my own pharmacy someday. So 1994, I came back and started working in Moses Lake. Janet told you some of that story, and I had some great experiences there. And then in 1998, we were able to open our own pharmacy in October 98. And in 2002 is when we started more into the journey of the health and wellness model. And basically what that is, you know, Jan and I are both pharmacists, obviously, but yet we don't believe in a lot of long-term medications, i.e. for blood pressure, i.e. for high cholesterol. And I'm not saying they're not always necessary, or sometimes not necessary, but they're not always necessary. So we wanted to focus on, instead of treating symptoms of high blood pressure or high cholesterol, we wanted to actually fix those problems. And a lot of times you can do that with diet and lifestyle changes, exercise, you know, weight loss, and hormone replacement is a big one. Our practice at Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy is a big hormone replacement practice. 85% of the stuff we do is hormone replacement. So, and we have changed lives all over the Pacific Northwest by balancing people's hormones. So if you want to join us, or you have any questions about hormones or diet and exercise or anything health and wellness related, please give us a call. Join in, 509-765-1470, open phone lines. And what the hormone balancing does is it actually fixes problems instead of treating symptoms. So, for instance, I was talking to a patient the other day, and they were prescribed Effexor, venlafaxine. She was in her 40s, maybe early 50s, and she was prescribed that for hot flashes. So it's an antidepressant medication for hot flashes, but you don't have a Effexor deficiency, you have a hormone deficiency. So our goal at Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy is we educate patients to not treat the symptom of hot flashes, but actually fix the problem, which is hormone imbalance. So, and when you do that, you also fix other issues like, you know, you help bone density, cardiac issues, skin issues, all kinds of other issues that it fixes just by balancing hormones. So instead of treating a problem or an individual symptom, we are actually fixing the problem. And it's very, very rewarding. We have patients all over the Pacific Northwest, and we get calls, emails, thank yous from patients all over saying how we have changed their life, and that is very, very, very rewarding. In all the years I practiced, regular retail pharmacy, I did not get that at all. But we really feel like we're really helping people, which is why we went to pharmacy school. So it's about time for our first commercial break. So you're listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. If you'd like to be part of the show, call in 509-765-1470. Thank you for listening. Hello. Welcome back, listeners and viewers. You're listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, and we were discussing our story and our background, and we're gonna move on with that. Be part of the show. We'd love to answer your questions. Anything health related. 509-765-1470. So, what makes our pharmacy different? What did we do different with this health and wellness model? Well, one of the biggest thing that makes our pharmacy different is we are a compounding pharmacy. And what that means is that we mix up our own medications. So we customize each individual prescription for a patient. We don't just pull something off the shelf and count and pour pills and then put it in a bottle. Janet and I have been there, we've done that. It was not very rewarding as a pharmacist. So we wanted to actually use the chemistry we learned and the education we learned in school. So that's kind of why we chose compounding. So we are able to customize formulas based on a prescription from a prescriber, and we consult with prescribers and patients all the time. That's what we do all day long, pretty much, and we recommend customized formulas for an individual patient based on labs, laboratory results, whether it be hormones or cholesterol, things like that, to make a customized formula. So that's what a compounding pharmacy is. That's what makes us different. We actually mix up our own medications. We have a dedicated laboratory to do that, and our pharmacists and technicians are trained specifically to do that. So go ahead, Janet.
So I just wanted to add into that mix the beauty of having a setup with a compounding pharmacy is building relationships where our doctors or nurse practitioners or PAs are part of a team, and we have a team approach with our patients and us. So we work together to customize what is best for a patient. It could be supplements, it could be rest, it could be maybe suggesting a health coach for exercise, but it's a team approach, and access to our pharmacy is very high for patients. If we're not able to answer the phone immediately with a question, we can always call them back, and counseling and spending time is part of the tool I think patients need to order to understand maybe what process needs to happen in order to achieve their wellness. And we want our patients to have an active role alongside of their providers, because we think we're team players. We're in it together, but the journey for health really is the responsibility of that individual.
That's right, and thank you for sharing that, because what we like to do is we like to empower patients, and patients need to be in charge of their own health care. And whether that's taking a medication, whether that's diet, whether that's lifestyle, whether that's sleep, whether that's exercise, patients have to be in charge of it, because that's the only way they're going to get better. You might see a doctor, once or twice a year for an hour, whereas you have to live, eat, and breathe that. So you've got to believe in it. That's one thing that we do, is we educate our patients to make them believe it, to help them believe in it. So I'd like to discuss my health journey. So I struggled with my weight, especially after college, and on and off, and finally in 2009 I decided, I am going to make some changes. My kids were getting older, and I was 60 plus pounds overweight. I didn't feel good. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I hated getting out of the shower in the morning because I didn't like to look at myself. I was scared to weigh myself. I was depressed. My knees hurt, my feet hurt, I had high cholesterol, I had high blood pressure, and finally in December 2009 I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make some changes. I wanted to be a good role model for my kids, and I wanted to enjoy my kids' lives, for one, and I wanted to be active in it. And at the time they were 9 and 7.
Yep.
Yeah, they were 9 and 7. and I want to be a good role model for him. So I made some changes in my life, and I lost 60 pounds. Of course, when I went to the doctor to get my physical, the doctor wanted to put me on blood pressure medication, wanted to put me on high cholesterol medication, and I didn't want to argue with him. I just said, at this time, I don't want to do that. I'm going to lose some weight, and so I did. I went ahead and lost some weight, and I lost 60 pounds. We have a weight loss program through our pharmacy that we've had success with thousands of patients. It's a weight loss program. You use a medication to help to maintain lean body mass, and while you're on a low-calorie diet, you maintain lean body mass and burn fat. So it is a strict calorie diet, and there's some strict foods you can and can't eat. But most patients lose between 25 to 30 pounds a month in the first month. So, and of course, the first question I got for some people is, well, wait a minute, losing that much weight at once, that can't be healthy. Well, let's remember this. The most unhealthy thing we can be is to be overweight. So, cardiovascular disease from heart attacks and strokes kill more Americans than cancer, car wrecks.
Absolutely.
Combined. So the most dangerous thing that we can be is to be overweight. And I did not want to be part of that statistic. So I lost weight. I lost about 56 pounds in 4 or 5 months. And I just felt great. I felt great. So, and just to kind of see how it goes with the family. So then in 2012, it's hard to get on your kids if they're overweight when you're overweight yourself. And I've been there, believe me. And my youngest son struggled with his weight, and he kind of eats like I do. And so he has to be really careful. He can just eat anything in front of him. And that was his style. And he probably learned it from me. So in 2012, he was 11 years old. And he was, for a kid, he was morbidly obese. I mean, he was 45 to 50 pounds overweight. And he knew it. And he was very sad about it. So because he had seen me lose weight, it was a lot easier for me to go to him and talk to him about losing weight. So we put him on a program, and he lost 37 pounds in about 6 months. It's a great, incredible story. Go to my Facebook page and message me on my Facebook page, and I can show you before and after pictures of him and myself for that matter. But now Jordan, he's 17 years old, and he works out 6 days a week. He weighs his food, for goodness sakes. Everything he eats, he weighs. And my older son, they work out together sometimes. They talk nutrition, diet, and exercise. And Jordan's thinking, it changes, he's only 17, but he's thinking about being possibly a personal trainer or something with diet and exercise to go to college. But because he gets questions from his friends all the time because he looks so good and feels so good. So they ask him what he does. And he doesn't do any kind of formal sports through school or anything. It's all self-motivated. And one of the reasons that my kids do that, I believe, is because they saw me change my life. So I don't work out with them. I don't set up workout programs for them. Now I used to when they were 12 or 13. I would set out workout programs for them and work out with them. But eventually I let them know. I'm like, okay, guys, you've done this long enough. You know what you need to do. You guys are on your own. If you need some help, I'll help you. And they've been self-motivated ever since. So it's an inspiring story. And then last fall, I'll let Janet go ahead and step in. But last fall, Janet made some changes. Let me add some details. So at first, my weight loss journey was all about, and health and wellness was all about diet. And I will say this: if we have to basically, there's 3 things basically to stay healthy. That is, exercise, eat, and sleep. And I will tell you, the most important thing is sleep. Let me tell you why. And think about this. We don't have to exercise to live. We don't have to. I mean, we will not die without exercise. We will die without sleep, and we'll die without food. And we will die without sleep before we'll die without food. Average person can go about 3 days without sleep, maybe up to a week. You will not be healthy if you do that. And the average person can go 3 weeks without food. So sleep is the most important. That's when our body recovers. So if you're going to pick one of those three, sleep is most important. And I honest to gosh mean that. I mean that also because there's other hormones that are stimulated in the body when you don't sleep called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone made in our adrenal glands. It's not like right now adrenaline, but it's kind of fight or flight, and it's preparing us for stress. And if it's too high all the time, it holds on to fat, it holds on to water, it's preparing us to run from something. So if you're high all the time, you're not going to sleep, and you're going to have a hard time losing weight. So sleep's the most important. Second would be diet, because like I said, we will die without food, but we won't die without exercise. So diet is really, really important. So I maintained most of my weight off for the first few years by controlling my diet. Now, fortunately, when my oldest son was 13 or 14, I think it was 2013. It would have been 2013. So he would have been barely 13. He said, "Hey, Dad." At the time, I wasn't exercising regularly. He goes, "Dad, I want to do the Insanity program." And I'm like, oh. Mm-hmm. So if you guys don't know what the Insanity is, it's from Beachbody. ShaunT, he does T25. Insanity, it was his first one, I believe. It's a great workout program, 6 days a week. They're about 60 to 90 minutes long. That's what we started with. So we started that as working out, and then later on we went into T25, and Janet did that program with us. And then later on I started riding bike and got into mountain bike racing, and that's kind of where my journey's at now. That's where my exercise comes in now, and of course I fuel my workouts with special diets now. So that's how I exercise, and Janet will share her story. What started last fall? What made you make some changes?
Well, so the age that I'm at is pretty typical of menopausal lady, and I decided that I did not want to feel like I was feeling. I felt tired and exhausted way too much. And so since my family was already on board, and we had lived for quite some time on pretty much whole foods at our house, that was an easy part of the journey I had, that I already had the pantry stacked healthy, but I still had the hormonal imbalances, and I also had extra weight that needed to be shedded. And I had 3 men in my house that were hard to keep up with. And if anybody knows my husband, I can say that we are a very active family. And so I just felt like on that journey it was time. And I had all the tools. I just hadn't made it my goal. It was a dream, but it wasn't a goal. And like Dave Ramsey says, if you don't write it down, that goal will never happen. And so I decided I wanted to lose 40 pounds. And I had a huge support from my boys and my husband, and I started that journey. And I did the weight loss program, was able to do that, and hit the wall when I decided I should start running again. And if anybody knows what happens to you when you turn 50 and you start running, your limbs, your ligaments, your knees and joints are not as young as they used to be. And so I injured one of my knees to the point where it was very difficult to walk, and I thought, boy, this is not how this should look. And since my husband had been riding bike for many years, he said, why don't you try this? And so I made a trip with him to a bike shop in Wenatchee and was fitted and started riding quite regularly. And it was not immediate. Like he said, I did T25, and I also did some yoga and stretching. So I started building core and endurance. And it's still, for me, I have to schedule endurance. But at this point, I feel like that journey is well on its way. So once I lost the weight, it was, Mom, how are you going to keep it off? and that would be my son Jordan speaking into my life. He's always that little voice that reminds us if we need to step it up. And he said, "Mom, you look great, but how are you going to keep it off?" And so that's where the bike came in. And then my husband says to me, "Well, maybe you should perhaps schedule some events so you have some rides that would keep you motivated." So my first ride was in Palm Springs, and I rode 50 miles. And I can tell you,
Woohoo!
right? I can tell you it was so exhilarating to achieve that goal. First, losing the weight, starting to feel better, having the endurance to ride 50 miles. It was exhilarating. I can tell you that making that goal and putting it on the paper and making the steps, it's not an overnight process, but it's a journey. And part of it was my family's made the journey. Now it's my turn. And also I'm preaching that journey to patients. And how does that look? How does that look when I tell somebody, well, you should lose about 5 or 10 pounds, and then I'm not following in that step? So I feel the commitment makes it easier for me, and I understand the journey that a lot of ladies and men are on as we age. But also to be able to say to people, I understand what you're going through, and no judgment in it. We're all human, and we all have things that we need to address. So for me, it was losing the weight and actually making the commitment. And so this February, I'm going to do 100 miles in the Palm Desert. Totally pumped for that, putting the miles in now. But it's not all about myself, it's about my family too. I feel blessed that all of them have chose to be accountable, but they're choosing a path that will lead them hopefully for a healthy life and enjoying life. I can hike with my kids, I can ride with my kids and my husband and do activities and feel good about it. So if you don't think you can do 100 miles, that's okay. I just encourage you to start with somewhere and something, whether it's jazzercise, whether it's going to yoga, whether it's just making those first steps. And I know we're heading to the first of the year where people have all kinds of goals in mind. And the first thing I would say is write it down and then find some accountability partners. That was something the Chandlers were speaking about when we had them on the show, that they're accountable to each other and they also have a coach to help them. So those are things that might be good tips for people.
That's right. Well, and thank you for sharing your story. I'm incredibly proud of you, and I am so excited for Palm Springs 100 miles. If anybody wants to join us, it's in February. Would love to have you go with us. You can choose 10, 25, 50, or 100 miles. So you are listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. It is time for a commercial break. If you'd like to be part of the show, please call in 509-765-1470. Thank you for listening. Hello, listeners and viewers, and welcome back to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. We are telling our story, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being a part of this show. So let me give you a little history of this show. It's actually something I've been wanting to do for years. I've been wanting to do a podcast for years to get information out. I mean, we feel that we have a passion for what we do, and we want to get that information out there. So I've been wanting to do a podcast for years, but it takes a lot of time. It's a big commitment, and I never really knew how to get started. So this live show every Monday from 1 to 2 o'clock at AM 1470 KBSN has been a great opportunity for us to get our story out. And one thing that we do also is that we save these episodes on our YouTube channel, so they are recorded on our YouTube channel, and we also save them on all your podcasting forums. So Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, we are on all of those now, and I'm super excited about that. So you can listen to us on those forums, subscribe, like them, give us a good review. If you want us to do something better, let us know. Also, if you have any questions, please live call in. Be part of the show, 765-1470. You can also message us on Facebook, and we will get back to you after the show if you have any questions about health and wellness. So about that, Janet mentioned some things about health and wellness in general with her journey, and I just kind of want to get some definitions and kind of let you know to preview some of the shows that we have coming up. So, simple things. I know sometimes we take it for granted. Sometimes I take things for granted, and Janet takes things for granted about things that we know about diets, and so it doesn't have to be super complicated. Diets can be very simple, and Janet talked about a whole foods diet. I'm going to be interviewing Robb Wolf from Paleo Solutions. He's also written the book Wired to Eat. He's kind of the one that really made the paleo diet big. And really, honestly, a whole foods diet is kind of a paleo diet. Now, some people will talk about a strict paleo diet versus non-strict, and some vegetables that we have nowadays or fruits are not really paleo. But so I like to say a whole foods diet because it makes it easier. And really, on that being said, here's a simple thing when we talk about whole foods diet or non-processed foods. Here's a simple thing to remember. If it doesn't rot, don't eat it. Think about that. If it doesn't rot, don't eat it. That's a whole foods diet. That's a fresh food diet. Now, and think about why things rot. Things rot because bacteria and fungus eat them, okay? So you got to think about it. If something doesn't rot, how good is it going to be absorbed into our system and we can assimilate those nutrients into our system? If bacteria and fungus won't eat it, we probably shouldn't eat it. So that's a simple thing. If it doesn't rot, don't eat it. So speaking of diets, and I talked about, a diet that we have in our pharmacy, but I have a special guest coming on in January on this show. She's going to be talking about bariatric surgery. She's been through bariatric surgery herself, and she will talk to us about who's a candidate for it, and she'll talk to us about the importance of follow-up afterwards, so there's not weight gain. So stay tuned for that. In January, we'll be having a post about that probably shortly. I'm hoping to get some information out about this week. So I also wanted to discuss that Janet talked about jazzercise, and that made me think of something. We have a guest coming up in February, and she is in her 70s. I'm just going to give that away. She looks incredible. She's an amazing person. She teaches jazzercise 3 days a week. She's starting this. She's building a gym at her house, so she can teach women how to work out. So stay tuned for that too, because that will give some women an outlet to start some exercise programs at the first of the year. So stay tuned for that. So let me go back in with Janet. Janet, you talked a little bit about menopause and going into menopause, and discuss that a little bit and how hormone balancing can help those issues.
Absolutely. So a lot of physical changes start happening to us as we reach that point. For most of us, the transition cannot be as smooth as others, and part of that might be just the lifestyle that we live as Americans, and also as a female in a home, when you are micromanaging things that maybe you don't need to, just your personality, a lot of things kind of culminate. But I will say this, there are solutions that are available as we are aging. And what happens is that our body just stops producing some of the hormones that we did produce and make while we were younger. And a lot of people get a little uncomfortable when we start talking about hormones, but quite simply, they are messengers in our body that tell our body that certain activities need to occur, and they are natural. They're part of what our body was making, and the beauty of replacing them with a provider who understands how to do that is you can do it very safely and also wise. And it changes too. So when I was in my early 40s, my health looked different than when I was in my early 50s. So adjustments needed to be made along the way. And how that looks for each lady is different. And like Shawn alluded to, menopause usually occurs when we're in our 50s, so that's where I am right now. And there's tools that our providers can assist us with. There's tools that we can assist you with. There's people that can help you with, for example, a coach could help you with your food and diet. That also helps too, because one thing that we have to keep in mind is we're not static like a rock. Our body's always changing. So as we're aging, our bones are changing, our skin is changing, our brain is changing. So we want to address those things as a team effort. And I simply went in and had some levels drawn. I said, I think I need to have my hormones looked at, and just had my blood work done. And then we made adjustments that way. And at first I didn't have that many hormones, but as I went along, I've had some adjustments that haven't been needed to make. And I'm very happy with the results. I don't have large amounts of concentrations or levels of hormones that I have to replace. But at this point, I'm very happy because my skin isn't dry. I feel like my bones are stronger. I feel like my memory is good. My memory's not being foggy, and that's one of the things I think was very frustrating for me, is that I felt like I was having fogginess.
Yeah, so when you talk about hormones, I get it, hormones, that's a very, very general term. So we usually use that generally, but we really should be more specific about it. So when we talk about hormones for women, what would you suggest, Janet?
So for any menopausal woman, my go-to is estriol cream. And the reason I say that is because we start having all kinds of issues with maybe a bladder infection or just dryness that's just uncomfortable. And then I would say the second thing that was very helpful for me was the hormone called progesterone, because that helps balance and it helps with your sleep patterns. And sleeping is gold. Your body does not repair without the sleep. And when I was able to sleep, oh my, the whole house is happier. Pets are happier. So I'm just saying that those were the two things, but there's other things too. So in my mid 40s, I did, and maybe I could step back, I think it was maybe in my 30s when I started having thyroid, low thyroid function, and having that balanced along the way was important too. So it could be estrogen too, it could be progesterone, it could be thyroid, it could also be testosterone for some women. So those are the main ones, but that's in conjunction with, I think, also having a balance between diet, sleep, and rest. And rest doesn't mean that we're sleeping as ladies. It means that we are participating in activities that are calming to us. So relaxation, whether it's music, whether it's watching a show, reading, anything like that.
Wait a minute. You mentioned testosterone? You mean testosterone? Women have testosterone also?
Yes, we do. We just don't have it as much. But yes, and it's a very good hormone for our bones, for libido, and just our overall muscle integrity.
Awesome. So she talked about women's hormones. Men have hormones also. And, it's something that's probably been talked about more over the last 10 years. In fact, at our pharmacy, when we first started doing hormone replacement 20 plus years ago, 99% of our patients were women. Now, probably about 50% of them are. We do a lot of male hormone replacement. You may have heard it called andropause. Women go into menopause, men go into male menopause, called andropause. And they have hormone levels that decline also. So it's important to not forget about men also, because testosterone for men can help with bone density, it can help with energy, it can help with mood, it can help prevent erectile dysfunction, depression, cholesterol. Think about that. Cholesterol. What do men get prescribed when they're in their 50s? A medication for high cholesterol, Viagra for erectile dysfunction, high blood pressure medications, medications for depression. Those are all medications that if you had your testosterone optimal and your thyroid optimal, you might not need those. Think about that. So we are about ready to wrap up this episode, another episode of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. An hour goes so fast. So Still time to call in if you'd like to have a question. 509-765-1470. Janet, what would you like to end with?
Well, we have exciting news. Shawn should be finishing up with his book here this month called Sickened, How the Government Has Ruined Healthcare. And so we are excited about that. Excited about having some guests on our program in the beginning of the year. So keep us in mind and check in with Facebook, YouTube, and live streaming on our radio, KBSN.
Speaking of my book, so yes, it's coming out in, I'm hoping to have a Christmas release. It'll be out, available on the Kindle version on Amazon. Working really hard to make that happen. It does have a Facebook page, so go to the Facebook page, Sickened, How the Government Ruined Healthcare and How to Fix It. There are a lot of tips in there. There are tips in there about how you will control your own healthcare. Don't let an employer control it. Don't let an insurance company control it. You control your own healthcare. And at the same time, you can save up to $18,000 a year. I'm not kidding you. This is for real. And you will get better service and better healthcare when you are empowered to control it. So yeah, go to the Sickened page. Also, follow me on Facebook. And the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy YouTube site. There's some great videos there, and it's not just from the radio show, but some other videos educating you on hormone replacement. And as always, you can message us on Facebook if you have any health-related questions. Janet?
Well, we want to wish everybody a happy holiday, safe travels in the foggy Moses Lake area, and we look forward to our next program. And I'm not sure who that guest is, Shawn.
That would be Matt Dinsmore, a doctor with a direct primary care office in Spokane. He will be on the show via phone, and I'm excited to have him on. You will learn a lot next week, so be sure to tune in. You are listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. This wraps up another episode of it. Thank you for listening.